Hi guys, welcome to Coturnix Corner. So there's all kinds of different colors Coturnix, but there's one that seems to be increasingly popular at this time, and that is the Black Coturnix. I see people inquiring about them all the time online, wanting to know where they can get them from. So I want to talk a little bit about them today. There's currently 2 breeders in the United States that are seriously working on the black lines and attempting to improve those lines and make them available to the public. And they are Southwest Gamebirds and Thieving Otter Farm. The Black Coturnix was originally developed and introduced to the U.S. by Kai Pepler out of Germany. Kai had shipped some eggs to an American breeder, William Carl Foster, who made them available in limited amounts to a few different breeders who have been working on those lines since. But Michael Rose and Rebecca Lynch seem to be the 2 breeders that have seriously, stepped up to the plate and started working with these lines and trying to perfect them before introducing them to the public. The original lines had some issues. Some of the birds were flighty, failure to thrive, and even low hatch rates. But through selective breeding, Michael Rose and Rebecca Lynch were able to produce a line of blacks that were stable enough to release publicly. And there are a few select breeders that are working with Rebecca and Michael, trying to continue on with these lines and keep them going. So what exactly is the Black Coturnix? I've heard some information going around saying that the Black Coturnix is nothing more than a really dark growl fee. I myself don't agree with that. The growl fee is a Tibetan crossed with a fab fee. But I talked with a very reputable breeder out of the Netherlands, and that is Klaus Marshall of Paradise Quail. And he has been doing some testing, reverse engineering, if you will, of the black quail by breeding them back to Faroes. And Klaus has got some interesting results by doing those tests. I talked to him yesterday on the phone in depth about this, and he said that when he bred his blacks back to Faroe, he actually produced fawn, sparkly, fee, pansy, and some EB, which is extended brown. Even Kai Pepler says that he's not 100% sure of what combinations produce the black, but by breeding black to black, you will get mostly black birds. There is some variation in the depth of color and patterning, but Michael Rose and Rebecca Lynch are working to perfect those lines to get a solid black bird with solid black toes, solid black legs, solid beaks, and a patternless bird which is just solid black. I did talk with Rebecca about what she's looking for when she's working with her lines, and she sent me a list of her things that she looks for when she's culling her black lines. Number 1 is health. She's looking for overall healthy birds, good vigor, and no defects. And number 2 is conformation. She wants a good representative of the Coturnix line. There are some good conformation sheets out there that Tamara Roselle released, showing you what you kind of want to look for if you're breeding these. But Rebecca wants these to be good representatives of the Coturnix quail line. Third was temperament, breeding towards a bird that is vigorous, not overly flightly, and definitely not aggressive. So I have noticed, I'm going to go into that in a minute about the results that I've had by hatching out some of these birds. Number 4 she's working on is size. The original birds were undersized, and she's been selecting towards a more robust size, breeding towards larger standards, and eventually a jumbo bird. And then number 5 being color. She's looking towards producing a solid black bird without any markings or patterns, and breeding towards a darker black plumage and again with no lightly colored toes. She wants solid black toes, solid legs, and black beak. And also she has a tuxedo line of blacks that she's working on, that she has a solid white band going across the breast of the bird. I was fortunate enough to get some black hatching eggs from Rebecca, Thieving Otter Farm. She actually sent 2 shipments out to me. The first shipment was 36 eggs, of which I got 21 to hatch out. Now keep in mind that this was during the summer, and for some reason this summer seemed to be especially hard on hatching eggs. I don't know what it was, whether it was the extreme temperatures, just the way the U.S. Postal Service is handling the eggs. I don't know, but it seems to me that a lot of people have had some pretty poor results this year. But I did get 21 chicks to hatch out of that first batch of 36 eggs, so I was extremely happy with that. The second batch I didn't do so well with. I think I had like a half a dozen chicks hatch, but the chicks were a week late getting here, but the eggs were a week late getting here. They got held up, tied up somewhere in shipping, and that was an extremely hot week, like mid 90s to upper 90s that entire week. So I wrote that one off as a heat issue as far as the hatching goes. Out of the 21 that I did hatch, I went through and selected probably a half a dozen, maybe 8 birds that I plan on keeping back for myself. I have a friend of mine up north who I gave some of those extra birds with because he lost some of his black lines when the hurricane came through. So I thought I'd help him out a little bit with that. But the birds that I got, they hatched out. They are, I compared them with the rest of my birds, my pharaohs and Egyptians and whatnot. They seem to be just as healthy. I haven't had any issues going from the incubator to the brooder. I've had no cases of failure to thrive. I did have, I think, 1 or 2 birds that are a little bit smaller, but they did survive. And it's funny because the smaller birds actually turned out to be a couple of the nicer birds that hatched out. They got really dark plumage, and they've got solid black legs and solid feet. So that's one thing that we're looking to produce. So I will hang on to those birds and worry about increasing the size later on down the road. I do want to bring you in a little bit closer. I want to show you some stuff, some of the birds that I hatched. The chicks, when they hatch out, you'll notice that they do have some facial patterning, which might lead you to believe that that is white markings on the face. And I had actually talked with Michael and Rebecca about that, and they said that that's normal and that patterning fades usually with a postnatal molt. I do notice that my birds that are, I think they're 4 or 5 weeks old now, they have absolutely no white anywhere on them, and the facial markings have faded out. So I'm going to bring you in a little bit closer. I just want to show you some of the birds I hatched. I've also got some photos that Rebecca sent me. I'll bring them up also. But just to give you an idea of what the birds consist of, what they look like, and what we're going to be breeding towards. Okay, so here's an example of a young chick. I believe this bird's right around 8 to 10 days old, somewhere in there. But you can see by looking at the face that it does have some facial markings on it. The wings are just now starting to feather out. And if you look at the legs, you can see that this bird does have some white toes. So depending on what happens with the color of this bird, this one most likely will be culled just due to the toes. I've got another one here that's just a little bit older, and you can see that the facial markings are almost completely gone, and there are very few, let's see if I get the right shot here, very little patterning throughout the bird. I did notice some of my birds range in color from a slate gray to a solid black. This one here I think is halfway in between. Like I said, there's very little patterning on the wings, breast, and whatnot. So that bird I will probably hang on to as a breeder. Here's the young bird. You can see also the facial pattern's gone. A little bit darker than the previous bird. But again, if you look at the feet, we've got pink toes or white toes. So again, I'm going to have to go through all these birds again and decide which ones are actually going to stay into my breeding program and which ones will be culled. Okay, and here's an example of a tuxedo. You can see right here on the breast, she has a white bar. The only thing that I noticed on this bird was she's got some white wingtips. So this bird, I would cull from my breeding program. Even though I'm not interested in producing a tuxedo line of blacks, I just wanted to show you this bird and give you an idea of what the white colored feathering on the breast would look like. Okay guys, so I hope this video answers any questions that you may have about the Black Coturnix. If you are interested in getting started with Black Coturnix, contact Michael Rose from Southwest Gamebirds or Rebecca Lynch from Thieving Otter Farm. I know Rebecca is shipping in very limited quantities right now. I'm not sure exactly what Michael's doing, but you can talk with him and he may be able to work something out with you. So guys, if you're not already subscribed to the channel, please do so. It helps me out. You can get notified of any new and upcoming videos. I want to thank you for joining me today, and we'll see you on the next one.